All right, welcome back, listeners. We are here live in the studio. You may be able to see us if you're watching the recording, and if not, I hope the audio sounds as crisp to you as it did to us the first time around.
First time.
Oh man, funny times.
Funny
We
times.
are so excited to be back for this season. Yes, this is our second
Second
attempt
attempt.
at
Take
this.
two.
Take
We
two.
did a whole hour and a half long recording where we talked about Silo and
Yeah,
had a
we had a
blast talking
blast.
about
Yes,
Silo. It was
yes.
such a good recording that nobody will ever hear because I forgot to hit the record button on the
It's
audio.
the
So
things,
let that be a lesson, folks.
This is indeed our second round at this, but I think we have just as exciting, if not more
Yeah.
exciting, now that we've been letting
Right.
the ideas simmer and stew a little bit more. I think we've got just as exciting of a episode for you in our inaugural episode of the season.
That's right. This bonus episode about Silo Season 1 on Apple TV Plus officially kicks off the second season of Science Fiction
That's
Book
right.
Club.
That's right.
And we are talking about Silo, and in fact, starting with talking about the adaptation, because of course we're going to be covering Wool by Hugh Howey
Right.
as the first book this season.
Yes.
And we figured, why not pull a little reverse Uno card
Uh-huh.
and start by watching the show
Start with
and
the
then
series.
get into the book.
Oh, yeah.
So you and I both watched the first season of Silo.
Yes.
This was actually a rewatch for you.
Yes.
This was the first time I was watching it all the way through.
Yeah.
We have some thoughts here in front of us on our iPads. We're
Indeed.
going to talk about the show. We're going to talk about our thoughts on everything from
Yeah.
the characters to the story
Yes.
to what we think will maybe happen in season 2,
Yes.
which is coming November 15th,
Yeah.
and which we will be covering on the podcast as well.
Most certainly. So buckle in. We're going to be jumping right into it. Maybe
That's right.
start with a little bit of a plot and episode summary.
Yeah. And before I get into this, to be super, super clear, spoilers.
Spoilers.
We're talking about the
throughout.
entire first season of Silo.
That's right.
Not spoilers for the book,
Yes.
because we
have
haven't
not
gotten into
read
it.
it yet, so only our predictions and our terrible speculation. But yes, indeed, spoilers throughout for the entirety of season 1 of Apple TV's Silo.
That's right. Okay, so Silo takes place aptly in a silo underground.
Indeed.
In the opening episode, we meet Sheriff Holston, who's having a bit of a rough time.
Yes.
We learned that 3 years ago, his wife Allison had left the silo voluntarily out into the wasteland.
Yep.
And as the episode progresses, we learn the reason why she did this.
Yes.
Allison had met with a mysterious man named George Wilkins, and they had uncovered this hard drive, which revealed to them that the view screens in the cafeterias of the silo that show the outside world are manufactured and false.
Huge
and that
conspiracy.
the outside world is actually a paradise.
Yeah.
So Allison wants to find the truth.
Right.
She voluntarily says, I want to leave the silo.
Yes.
A cardinal sin
Yes.
in this society.
Yes.
And so Holston loses his wife.
Yes.
We watch in this first episode, Holston follow a similar path
Yeah.
of trying to uncover the truth of the silo,
Yeah.
of the things his wife uncovered.
Yeah.
And he tragically follows in Allison's footsteps.
Right.
He too leaves the silo. We get this vision of a green paradise in his helmet as he's
Right.
looking around.
Right.
Was Allison right? Oh
Yeah.
my God.
Yeah.
But then he too perishes
Yes.
right next to the body of his wife.
Yeah. A little bit of a siren song, you know, like
Yeah.
it keeps alluring these people out and to their deaths.
To their deaths.
Yeah.
So then we meet Rebecca Ferguson's character, Juliet.
Yes.
Who is
Juliet
our
Nichols.
Juliet
Yes.
Nichols.
Oh,
My
man.
goodness. I have so many thoughts about Juliet.
Same,
She's
same.
such a great character.
Absolutely.
We meet Juliet Nichols. She is a mechanic working in the down deep in the
Yes.
lowest areas of the silo. She primarily works on, the generator. that
Keeping
keeps
them
the,
alive?
The power
Yeah,
on?
that's right.
Oh my goodness. So Juliet
Yeah.
has been nominated. Holston's last wish as sheriff
Right.
was to
right.
nominate Juliet as his successor, which is
Yes.
crazy.
Yeah.
She's not qualified for this job at
Right,
all.
Right.
But Mayor Johns believes in Holston and believes that he would not have picked Juliet without a reason.
Yes.
And so with a little bit of convincing, Mayor Johns is able to get Juliet to take the job. Now, of course, we, the viewer, know that Juliet primarily takes the job because she, too, wants to figure out what's going on in this silo.
Yeah.
And more importantly to her, more personally to her, is she was romantically involved with George Wilkins.
That's right.
As we learned throughout the course of this
Yes.
series. And she wants to get to the bottom of his murder.
Right.
So early on in the season, Juliet has a very difficult job because a series of very high-profile murders take place.
Yes.
The beloved Mayor Johns herself.
Johns, yes.
Killed.
Yes.
Deputy Sheriff Marnes.
Killed. Yeah.
This guy we don't really care about.
Don't really know.
Yeah, Sims's shadow,
Yes.
the judicial guy.
That's right.
But still, killed.
Yeah. Juliet almost dies.
Almost.
Yeah.
It's all interconnected as far as Juliet is concerned, of course.
Yes.
And she wants to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
And so most of the season is her figuring out the larger mystery of the silo and the more specific mystery of these murders and the truth of George Wilkins.
Right.
Throughout the course of the season, we watch Juliet strategically butt heads, basically, with Mr. Sims from Judicial, this like boogeyman character who we come to know.
Yeah.
And then the new mayor, Bernard, who was formerly the head of IT and
Right.
is now the interim mayor.
Right.
Of course, we'll come to learn that Bernard is kind of the bad guy behind
He's the
all
puppet
of this.
master behind us, yeah.
Kind of in cahoots with Sims as well.
Right.
Things really come to a head near the end of the season, kind of in the third act, when Juliet gets her hands on the hard drive that George Wilkins had with all of this information that Bernard and Sims do not want out there.
Right.
It jeopardizes the safety and security of the silo.
As far as they're concerned.
As far as they're concerned.
Yeah.
Juliet then takes Sims's wife and son hostage.
Right. The sheriff takes the
judicial man's
wife
family.
and child. Yeah,
oh my goodness.
It's quite bizarre. Yeah.
This was a crazy scene.
Yes, absolutely.
She's able to crack open the hard drive.
Yes.
She sees this really heartfelt message from George Wilkins.
Right.
And by working with some not so savory characters that she has come across her as her time as sheriff, she's able to broadcast the video of this like paradise video of the outside to every computer in the silo.
Right.
Which is shocking stuff.
Yeah.
Of course, Bernard, being the head of IT, clickety clack clack clack, he's able to shut it down pretty quickly.
Incredibly swiftly. I mean, he was in the dining hall watching it with everyone else, and suddenly he was gone and had, kind of
it was kind of played as like a V for Vendetta moment where like bad guy takes over all the TV stations and gets his message out. But if you weren't looking at your computer at the exact moment Juliet broadcasts the video, you probably didn't see anything. I mean, honestly, it was very quick. Good on Bernard, I suppose.
Oh, yeah.
Finally, Juliet is apprehended, ultimately. She is apprehended, and she is basically blackmailed into also leaving the silo.
Yes.
And so in the final episode of the season, we wrap up as Juliet follows in Allison and Holston's footsteps, leaves the silo, goes out into the world, experiences the same thing. We realize that what she is seeing is fake. It's like this VR world in the helmet, this paradise.
Right.
And she's able to basically break this cycle because we're told throughout the whole show, everyone who goes out cleans the cameras with their piece of wool.
Yeah. And they all say kind of the same thing. Everyone needs to see this. It's so beautiful out, and
everyone does it without fail.
Right.
Until Juliet Nichols walks right up to that camera.
Epic moment.
Stares that lens down the barrel, grabs her wool, and drops it.
Yeah, incredible.
An actual mic drop moment. Everyone in the silo is losing it. This is unprecedented. It's never happened.
Yeah.
And then Juliet walks away.
Right.
Eventually, she walks far enough away, presumably, from the silo for the signal to break.
Right.
And she sees the reality of the world,
right.
which is very post-apocalyptic.
Yes. Yeah.
And we as the viewer are left to wonder if Allison kind of got duped or Allison had the wrong idea and the world outside still is dangerous and still post-apocalyptic.
Right.
The big revelation at the end of the show, though, is as the camera pans out, we see dozens.
What appear to be dozens
of other silo entrances.
Yeah.
littered all throughout the wasteland.
Yeah.
Quite close to like neighboring each other.
Yeah,
you know?
definitely. Yeah.
Nothing that's like, oh, this is 10 miles away and
Right.
we'd never know this existed.
Right.
They seem to be quite literally
Yes.
neighboring each other.
Yeah,
Dozens of them. There
yeah.
are other silos out there.
Yes.
And that's where the show ends.
Yeah.
Juliet Nichols in her suit is walking off into the wasteland.
Yeah. Yeah, it's honestly epic. I mean,
It's so good.
The finale of season 1 just was so satisfying, and I mean it didn't really wrap up the mystery. I mean, the threads are open.
The threads are open.
The threads are open in really the best of ways. I mean,
Yeah.
The fact that we see what appear to be these other silos is incredibly shocking to us, because as the audience, we also believe that there are only 10,000 humans left. I mean, that is what all of the people in the silo believe. They think that they are one of the last generations, basically, of humanity to survive what we don't quite know. Like, we assume maybe nuclear fallout. It's kind of unclear, but their origin story is just as big a mystery. But in the last few moments, I mean, we see this really startling reveal.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah.
And I will say, just to zoom out and talk about our impressions of the show,
Yes, yeah.
I loved it.
Oh.
Like, capital L, loved
Same.
it.
Yeah.
And in fact, I would go so far as to say, this show is really underrated. Why
Agreed.
were people not talking about it
Yeah.
way more when it came out?
Yeah.
About a year-ish
Yeah,
ago.
yeah.
I feel like it landed totally silently, like
Yes.
under the radar.
Yeah.
I don't remember it ever being marketed to me in
Right.
any sense, and
Right.
this is my world.
Yeah.
I'm very in
Yeah.
touch with pop
You're
culture and sci-fi.
their target demo.
I'm the target demo.
Yeah.
I don't remember this show ever coming out.
Right.
And I feel like even within the zeitgeist, people were just not talking about it a lot.
Yeah.
But to me, this is a spectacular show.
I agree. Yeah.
I loved every minute of it.
Yeah.
I even wrote down in my notes here, well-paced mystery, no wasted episodes.
Yeah.
Like, I truly feel like I needed all 10 of those episodes for the story to unravel.
I agree, yeah.
And on the surface level, yes, there's like a murder mystery happening. Sure.
Yeah.
But
A few of them, in fact.
A few of them, in fact.
Yeah.
Many bodies have hit the floor.
Many bodies, yeah.
But I think what's even more interesting in the larger mysteries that are unraveling over the 10 episodes is the mystery of the silo.
Absolutely.
The truth of what's happening here.
Yeah.
The bombshell revelations, like the Big Brother surveillance state
Yes.
that Sims is conducting.
Yeah. Which was like in episode 4 or 5. I mean, we had kind of big reveals and new mysteries spawned several times throughout the season.
Several times.
Yes.
And of course, there's the big bombshells. But what really kind of grabbed me and got its claws in me was the little things.
Yeah.
In one episode, someone makes an offhand comment that elevators aren't allowed.
Right.
In the silo.
Right.
But there's like, I don't know, 200 floors
It's
of the silo.
kind
People
of
are
absurd.
complaining about having to walk up and down all the time.
Their Olympics is running the stairs.
Running the stairs.
Yeah.
That's such a good point.
Right.
Yeah, their marathon is like, okay, just go up and down, folks. So that's fascinating to me. Like, that kind of world building is really fun to me because there's a lot of mystery there. And whether or not I get an answer, it creates this energy and vibe of the show that I really appreciated. I will say, I was like, okay, was this show a critical failure then? If it was so underrated, if nobody talked about it?
Yeah.
I looked it up. Rotten Tomatoes, 88 critic score.
Okay.
Which is really high.
That's quite high. Yeah.
That's high. Like, if you compare it to Fallout,
Yes.
which was by all means
Came out
considered
to
a smash
raving
hit.
reviews.
Raving
yes.
reviews.
Yeah,
A
absolutely.
smash
Yes,
hit.
yeah.
Everyone
And correctly so.
talking about
Deservedly
it.
so.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was such a good show.
Yeah.
Even that, I don't remember the exact Rotten Tomato score, but it was like high 80s, low 90s.
Right.
So for a TV show to be in the 80s.
Yeah, and to just completely fly under the radar is quite bizarre.
It's bizarre.
Yeah.
Critics clearly loved it.
Yeah.
I hate an audience score, but I'm going to tell you what the audience score is
Yeah,
anyway. 65%.
Okay.
Not terrible,
No.
you know? But like,
Clearly not a flop, you know.
clearly not a flop.
And it's not going to be for everybody. So 65
Certainly.
honestly seems about right to me. Yeah.
Seems fine,
Yeah.
yeah. So, man, I here's my critique.
Yeah.
And here's my thought. Here's my theory. Apple fumbled the ball marketing this show.
Perhaps. Yeah.
I didn't hear about it on
Yeah.
the Target demo.
Yeah.
I kid you not, the like blurb on the app when you go and look for Silo literally says something along the lines of mechanic living underground attempts to solve 4 murders or something, you know? Like, that is hardly what the show is about.
That is such a hilariously thin summary of the show. It
Yeah.
makes you think, when did ChatGPT come out?
For real. For real.
Did somebody just phone this in? Because I think, one thing that we have to call out to just kind of reinforce, how impressive the show is in so many ways. The casting for
Oh
this
my
show.
goodness.
Let's talk about. I mean,
Yes.
we're talking Rashida Jones as Alison Becker. Absolutely kills it.
Kills it.
If anything, I'm as much as I'm looking forward to season 2, I'm disappointed because we're unlikely to see her. And she did a phenomenal job as Alison Becker. Of course, Sheriff Holston is David Oyelowo. I hope I said that correctly.
That was very brave of you to go right in there.
And stunning job as well. We've got
Yeah,
Will
I
Patton
agree.
as Sam Marnes, Tim Robbins killing it as Bernard Holland, and Common as Robert Sims. So much to say about his performance.
Yeah.
But I mean, all to say, this show is stacked, and
Yes.
For it to really have escaped the zeitgeist in the way that I think it did is a little surprising. And I have to say,
agree.
I am such a fan of the Apple TV lean into science fiction. I mean,
Of
it's
course.
produced obviously Silo, but we also had, I think in recent years, Invasion, which was phenomenal. I remember we talked about this obviously yesterday.
Yeah.
Also kind of flew under the radar, I
I
think.
don't know that it exists. I learned about it yesterday.
That's mind-boggling to me because it is certainly one of my favorite alien-themed. I mean, the title of the show is Invasion, okay? So we're talking about an alien invasion, all right? Sorry for that spoiler, okay? But I mean, it's absolutely one of my favorite. It's in that subgenre, and there've been a few others. Obviously, we've talked about Severance as well.
Yep.
I mean, in the last few years, Apple has kind of knocked it out of the park with these, and I wonder if maybe it's a saturation question or just maybe splitting the marketing budget across these kind of across this family of shows, but it's a little puzzling. Yeah,
It is. It is. Let's revisit this cast because you
Yes.
brought up cast. I
Yeah.
have thoughts.
okay, let's get into it.
Let me start with Rebecca Ferguson as
Yes,
Juliet.
absolutely.
Holy shit.
Yes, favorite character, my favorite character, certainly
by far.
Yeah.
Well, Paul Billings is a strong competitor.
Run for
I really loved Juliet. I wrote down a couple of things in my notes
Yeah.
here. I wrote down that she's flawed but likable.
Yeah.
I like that she has her own motivations.
Yeah.
She's like an internally consistent character, right? She
Sure.
never acts out of character
Yeah.
in order to like move the plot forward or
Right,
something.
right.
She's always acting for her own interests.
Yeah.
Which is very consistent for the backstory that we're given for her.
Right.
We understand why she acts the way she
Yeah.
does, and she continues to do that all season
Yeah.
long. I think that's strong writing. I think
Yeah.
that makes for a strong and compelling character.
Yeah.
I also like how competent she is. Like if I was
Absolutely.
thrown into the role
Absolutely.
of sheriff of the
Yes,
silo,
absolutely.
the first sight of blood, I would
Yeah.
faint.
Yeah.
Like I would be like,
Right.
shit, I'm unqualified for this.
Right,
Actually, I
right.
don't know what I'm doing here.
Yeah. Obviously, you can have the job. Yeah. Bernard, you want
So anyone
whomever,
else?
Robert,
Right.
whoever you want to be the Paul, you're the new sheriff, okay?
Yeah, here's the badge, my guy.
yeah.
So I really enjoyed how competent she is.
Yeah.
But also, I loved that the show made it clear that like this is a very resourceful and independent person.
Yeah.
She's been on her own since 13.
Right.
And so, of course, she's adaptable.
Yeah.
She's going to take on this new thing. She's headstrong. She's a little chaotic.
Yeah.
She's certainly quite direct and straight up rude at points. You
Sure.
know, not the
Yeah.
most personable human being.
Yeah.
But we're given reasons for all of that. And
Yeah.
she becomes an extremely sympathetic
Yeah.
and compelling character.
Right.
Most of all, I liked that she makes mistakes and then overcomes them in ways that are believable and totally make sense. Right? She doesn't have that like main character plot armor
Right.
where the main character can make a mistake, but
Right.
then circumstances happen to come together in a way where they make it out
Right.
of, whatever hairy situation
Right.
they're in. Juliet gets herself into situations and then is able to maneuver herself out of them in ways where you're like, oh, that was smart.
Yeah.
Good, Juliet.
Yeah.
Like, that's on brand for you to
Yeah.
do, and also was very interesting
Yeah.
to watch you do.
Yeah, I will say credit to the writing of the show, maybe of the book. Obviously, I don't know how much of this is true to the book,
Yeah,
but
that's true.
I think yeah, I agree. Like it's also the case with Holston and Allison Becker. I mean, two of the strongest played by two of the strongest actors on the cast, and both of them find themselves essentially dead after just a few episodes. I mean,
Yeah.
I agree. There isn't kind of the same plot armor for even the core cast members of this show that you see. I mean, typically in most
Oh,
television,
totally.
you know. So
I was shocked.
yeah,
The Mayor John's death
yes,
hit me
yes,
out of nowhere.
yeah,
The Deputy Marne's death was a little more
yeah,
sort of telegraphed, and we knew it was maybe coming.
sure,
Totally blindsided.
yeah,
That Holston, Mayor,
yeah,
Deputy, like
right,
back to back, these
right,
major characters
right,
that are all instantly compelling,
yes,
gone.
yeah, yeah,
I think that's a strong way to open a show
yeah.
because much like Juliet, then we are also desperate to know what
Right.
the fuck is
Right,
going on
right,
in
right,
this
right. Who's left? I mean, like,
right.
yeah, yeah,
Just Sims.
yeah,
I brought up Paul Billings earlier.
yes,
I want to give a huge shout out to Chinaza Uchi, is maybe the pronunciation of the actor's name.
yeah,
Instantly lovable character.
yes,
Every time he was on screen, I was glued to the screen.
Yeah.
I think he perfectly walked this line between a very competent, respectable, and quite effective deputy sheriff.
Yeah.
While also being just kind of pathetic enough that you want to give him a real big hug all the
Sure.
time. Like,
Yeah.
I really wanted to
Yeah.
hug him, especially after the syndrome reveal.
Yeah,
After we learn that he has this condition that he's been hiding.
Right.
Because otherwise he'll be removed from the post.
Right.
After that, I couldn't help but want to just like hug him every time
Yeah.
he was on screen.
Yeah.
Although he did burn that one relic, and I was really mad about that. He
yeah. I
threw it in
was
the
a
oven.
little puzzled by that. I couldn't tell if that was him helping Rebecca, like trying to get rid of some of the evidence, you know, that thinking that maybe that's what they were like
yeah.
hunting her down for, because clearly they were hunting her for having some kind of an artifact. So
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if that
and
was
he
him.
doesn't quite know about the hard drive.
He doesn't know about the hard drive, so I figured maybe this was him. You know, again,
That's a really
kinda
great
looking-
read on it.
Yeah, taking care of her a little bit.
I love that read because
Yeah.
I looked at it and I was like, oh no, he's going by the pact. All
Mm.
relics have to be blah blah blah.
Oh, sure, yeah, but he didn't report it.
He didn't
never
report it.
Yeah,
The pact
and he
would
kept
say
one
report.
page. So
That's good.
yeah, a little curious.
That's
yeah.
a good read. I think
Yeah.
he was straight up helping Juliet.
I think
there.
it was attempting to, certainly. Yeah.
Wow, such a great read.
Yeah.
And again, that makes me love him even more.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Like,
Yeah.
Paul,
Yeah.
be my best friend.
Well, let me remind you, however, that he also did end up getting onto the hunt for her. You know, he did kind
Yes.
of, after talking to, I think, his wife, come to the conclusion that, hey, no, I need to correct this mistake because, to be fair, it was, I think he kind of lost his grip on her when they were on the stairs, and
Yeah.
she evaded capture.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
know, he, I think, became more resolute in talking to his wife, realizing that Robert Sims, in fact, knew that he had the condition, and
Right.
he was getting kind of special dispensation to continue
Yeah.
to serve. But he did, in fact, kind of get back on the Juliet hunt. And
Yeah.
the
And that's kind of been, that's what makes him so compelling. I feel
Yeah.
like that's been his arc for
yeah,
most
it's
of the
consistent.
season.
It's
consistent.
absolutely consistent with
Right?
it. Yeah.
He always comes in and fights with Juliet about
Right.
some XYZ thing in the pact.
Yes, right.
We have to do this by the
pact,
book.
Yes, yeah.
But then he will lie for her.
Yeah.
He will break the pact
Yeah,
for
he will
her.
cover for
He
her,
will
yeah.
consistently do the right thing, even if
Yes.
it goes against the pact
Yes,
that he
yeah.
so strongly believes in.
Yeah.
And I think that, how can you not love a guy
Of
who
course.
does that?
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
a friend who's like a rule follower,
Yeah.
but will instantly break the rule
Right,
for you,
right,
Because
right.
their loyalty to you
Right.
is
Their
above
sense
all
of,
else.
what's right and wrong. Yeah,
So loved Paul Billing,
definitely.
a very compelling character.
Yeah.
We do need to talk about Common.
The absolute best. I mean, Common, I think, and I shared this with you yesterday, of course, but I I looked him up and I didn't realize this, but Common has 3 Grammys, like
Okay.
2 Academy Awards,
Whoa.
an outstanding Emmy, or an Emmy for an outstanding TV series.
Okay, wait.
I mean, he's got basically, he got it. I mean,
Nearly.
I mean,
Somebody get Common a Tony.
somebody get Common a Tony. He is just incredibly talented, and his performance in this show underscores that for me. I mean, I will say, just about my favorite episode, episode 5 of Silo this season is entitled Janitor's Boy, and Common gives a monologue about 40 minutes into it to his would-be shadow.
Yeah. Oh,
and
my goodness. Yes.
it is just the highs, the lows. You can see the shadow not realizing that at the end of this monologue, he will be falling to his death. And he's right there the whole time with Common, just eating up Common's like essentially recollection of how he came to understand this world that he lives in from his father, a janitor, a mere janitor, a mere janitor.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just just a stunning scene. And I think Common absolutely knocks it out of the park with his character in the show.
I couldn't agree more. It's to the point where I forgot I was watching Common.
Yeah.
Right? Because Common
totally.
is such a well-known
Yes, of course.
just person and celebrity on his own outside of a TV show.
Yeah.
And oftentimes for me, I struggle. Like if I know somebody too well outside of a show, if they show up in what I'm watching, it's hard for me to buy them as another character.
Oh, of course. I mean, this is Macaulay Culkin. You couldn't see him in anything for ages.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And Common did that.
Right.
As I watched Silo, Common disappeared.
Right.
And Mr. Sims appeared.
Yes.
And every time he was on screen, so compelling.
Yes.
I'm really glad that we learned so much of his backstory.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because at first, in the first couple of episodes, you're like, this like CIA boogeyman character doing like, whatever secret stuff in the shadows.
Right.
Classic.
Classic, yes.
But then you learn about his family.
Oh, yeah.
And then you watch the way he treats people that he's even antagonistic against.
Yes.
And you realize why he's so good at his job.
Yeah.
And it's because he's weirdly empathetic.
Yeah.
Even with the people that he's fighting against.
Sure, yeah.
There's that really great scene late in the season where he's speaking to Miss Hildebrand.
Yes, Gloria Hildebrand, right.
And he sits down on the bed with her.
Yeah.
And he he threatens her.
He threatens her, naturally.
Naturally, that's part of his job.
Yes.
But he also is sympathetic to the fact that he has a child because of Miss Hildebrand's help.
Yes.
As a fertility doctor back in the day.
Yeah. It's a weirdly warm conversation.
It's a warm conversation.
Oh, yeah.
And the tone is incredible. And
Yeah.
I think Common walks that line so well as Mr. Sims in this show.
Yeah.
Between, I get where this guy's coming from. I can see why he's so good at his job. Oh my God, he's doing vile shit.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And like, how is that
in the
not
same
fun to
breath
watch?
almost?
Yes.
Yeah.
In the same breath that he's like, thank you for my son. I
Yes.
wouldn't have him without you.
Yes.
He's turning 6 next week.
Right.
I will lock you in this room forever and to be tortured in your own.
Right.
Did you just say that in the same
Yes.
breath, Mr. Sims?
Yes.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Really great character.
I agree.
I have one other character I want to comment on.
Yeah.
Lucas is the mysterious man in the cafeteria.
Yes.
He's charting the stars,
Yeah.
which he doesn't realize are stars.
Yeah.
I'm a bit confused why nobody knows about astronomy in the silo.
Yeah, they are weirdly capable, but also very ignorant of like basic, like human history. I don't even. Yeah, it's a little interesting. Yeah.
I hope we learn more about that.
Yeah.
Why that history in particular has been lost.
Yeah.
But Lucas is out here. He's charting the stars.
Right.
Juliet runs into him every now and then, and they strike up conversations. Lucas is like very endearing and awkward.
Right.
And there's a bit of a like romantic flirtation happening, mostly from Lucas's side, but I don't know that Juliet is like rebuffing him entirely.
Sure.
She's open to it, I think. But the only thing I really have to say about this is that there's no way Lucas has that beard and that hair and is simply not drowning in silo pussy.
I mean, you're not wrong.
I could not get myself to believe that Lucas was this nerdy, awkward bumbling. I've
Supermodel.
never
Yeah.
I've never been in a romantic
Right.
situation.
Right.
Nobody.
Right.
Not with that hairdo.
Yeah.
Not with your like chiseled jaw. What
Sure.
the fuck?
Yeah.
Like such
A
a
true
good
Chad. A true Chad.
such a
Yes.
good looking guy.
Yeah.
I don't think he's a miscast because
Yeah.
I think he still played it really well.
Yeah.
But I think it was a little silly. This is very like American television.
Sure.
Everyone in American television is just like
Yeah.
10 out of 10
Yeah,
gorgeous. Even the quote unquote nerdy ugly ones.
Right.
And Lucas kind of falls into that category for
Yeah.
me for sure.
Yeah. I definitely feel that. I will say on characters. So you make a great point about Juliet, who's, I will say again, favorite character, and also Alison Becker we have played by the incredible Rashida Jones, phenomenal character. We've got
Yes.
Martha Wells. We have a number of really strong female characters, and I think that they are played incredibly well, and their role in the story is one that I appreciate, and I really kind of enjoy their how their characters are written. My only critique, I guess, is both with Juliet and I think it is mainly with Juliet that her subplot with George Wilkins and also with Lucas, to me, I didn't find much point in it. Like I kind of get like how it moves, some of the plot forward, and also that it heightens some of the I guess tension and is part of the motivation for Juliet in pursuing these kind of great conspiracies and mysteries. But I didn't think that it was necessary, and I kind of felt like it. I don't want to say it undermined, say, her character, but I would have been also happy without it. Like I think it totally.
Yeah.
It's the episodes where they're kind of sharing more of their intimate moments and their time together. I didn't care for it as much. I'll be honest.
I'll admit, I reached for my phone.
Yeah.
Every time we cut to a flashback of them being romantic in bed or whatever.
Right.
I was not feeling the chemistry on screen.
Just didn't think there was that much chemistry.
And I agree.
Yeah.
I don't think it was necessary.
I think it was totally necessary.
I still would have. And you know what? Like, I can understand in the writer's room, they were like, we need to give Juliet emotional stakes in this murder
great
mystery.
way of putting it. Yeah.
Right?
Right.
But I would have believed it if this was even just like a childhood friend.
Exactly.
From the Down Deep or something.
Yes. Yeah. One of her colleagues, honestly, it would have been totally fine.
Yeah. A colleague. Right. Like, I didn't need this to be a romantic entanglement for me to still believe there's stakes.
Right. And again, not the biggest criticism. I think we both agree this is really a phenomenal show. But I think, that's like the one element that to me was could do without.
Yep. Yeah. I agree. Okay, let's get into some questions I have about the silo itself.
Yes.
Just talking nerdy world building here. Yes. I loved the world building in this show. Yeah. We saw, for example, the many layers of the silo, the hydroponic farms.
Yes. Yeah.
We saw some of the traditions, like the biting the apple and throwing it in the grave, during a funeral.
Yeah. The paper lanterns on Freedom Day.
Yes,
yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Very fun to see this world building take place.
Right.
Both visually, like, TV is a visual medium, so a lot of this didn't need to be explained.
Right.
I can recognize a hydroponic farm and understand this is where they grow their crops.
Yeah. Also, there are like retro computers and like their tube monitors and lots of really fun little elements like that.
For sure. However,
yes,
this raised some questions for me. First up, you mentioned earlier there's 10,000 people in this silo.
Only 10,000.
How does that work for genetic diversity of the people in this silo?
That is a good point.
I'm no like geneticist, biologist.
Sure.
So I feel like someone out there watching maybe has a better answer than I do. I frankly only have questions here about this. Is 10,000 people across multiple generations? Because we know at this point there are kids whose parents have lived their entire lives in the silo, whose grandparents have lived entire lives in the silo, and the history's lost. We don't even know how old this silo goes back.
Yeah.
Is 10,000 enough to sustain enough genetic diversity in a population to avoid like one coronavirus level event that just wipes everyone out?
Right.
Is that enough?
Yeah.
It makes me wonder.
Yeah.
Because they are so excuse the pun, siloed
Yeah.
off from everyone else.
Yeah.
It is just these 10,000
Right,
people,
right,
and they all
right.
know each other,
You're
and
like
they
in a
all
little
have
petri
some.
dish, you know?
It's a little petri dish, and you really risk
Yeah.
some sort of biological disease
Yeah.
wiping everyone out
Yeah.
because everyone's practically weak to the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, that makes me wonder if there's larger answers to these questions that we haven't gotten yet.
Yeah.
And of course, we're told there are other silos in
Yes.
the final seconds of the
Yes.
show in the season. So it makes me wonder if there's a situation akin to, remember in Fallout how they traded people in
Right.
marriages
Right. To promote their diversity.
to
And, yeah.
sort of promote genetic diversity,
Yeah.
to spread diversity around
Right.
in that sense, so that one of those Fallout shelters would not just succumb to disease.
Yeah. Right.
I'm curious how the silo is handling that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's clear that they practice pretty strict, severe population controls. I mean, to the point of deceiving those who are attempting to conceive,
Right.
which, you know, obviously horrifying. I mean, it's
Oh my God.
those are one of the kind of more that's one of the more dystopian elements present in this show. But yeah, I mean, to your point, it does kind of make me wonder a little bit if that is why there are such strict rules about not going outside. And is it maybe to prevent, I mean, maybe it is the petri dish, this like petri dish theory, perhaps, that these other silos are an avenue to ensure the survival of humanity more broadly. I mean, that's like kind of where my mind goes, but it is curious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very curious about it. And because we have the syndrome,
Yeah.
clearly not a deadly disease of any.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, maybe we know
Hard
very
to know.
little
The
about
syndrome
the
is
syndrome.
another thing that I'm also kind of wondering about because it played a relatively minor role in this season, at least. Obviously, a huge part of Paul Billings' story.
Yeah.
But there is no one else with the syndrome, and there does seem to be something in the pact about people that have the syndrome, like they aren't allowed to serve in certain capacities. And makes me kind of wonder, like, how big of a problem is it? Like, what? Yeah, it's a little bit of an open question there as well, I think.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll explore more of those
Yeah.
in season 2. The other thought that I had about the world building of this silo is, I guess when I learned the premise of the show, I thought it would be smaller, like more cramped.
Yeah.
It's kind of huge, right?
It is absolutely massive.
It's enormous. Even
It's
the
enormous.
walkways are like enormous.
Yes. Yeah.
You could drive like 2
tanks.
cars.
Yeah. Oh,
like,
easily.
Side by side.
Oh, easily. Yeah.
It's big.
Yeah.
Even the apartments.
Spacious. Luxurious.
Dare I say luxurious?
Yeah,
of
indeed.
course. Like I have been in New York City apartments that are smaller than anything we saw in the show.
Oh, certainly. Yeah, certainly.
You know, people paying top dollar
Yeah.
in this horrible market right now.
Yeah, sure.
It's a horrible rental market right now. Paying top dollar for small, tiny little apartments.
Yeah.
That, frankly, I feel like anyone in Silo would be like, I'm not fucking living in this closet.
Oh, yeah. Cozy would be too generous. I mean, yeah, you couldn't.
Oh, my goodness. I mean, that was certainly a question I had.
Yeah.
Was with the visual aesthetic of the show.
Sure.
They seem to have kind of made everything big.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem that bad. I don't.
Yeah.
Is that crazy? The silo seems fine to live in.
Yeah.
It's like spacious. You have running water.
Sure.
You have electricity.
Yeah. I will. Yeah, that is maybe another small flavor of criticism that I have is there is a little bit of like 90s sitcom flavor to the set where it is very spacious. It is quite.
Yeah.
You know, if anything, there are moments where I'm kind of thinking, it's a little utopian. This is kind of. I
want to live in the
silo. Is it on any of the? Is it on Street Easy? Like
I'm a little envious of Holston's sheriff apartment.
Truly, yes.
Which, you know, obviously
fair.
the top of the top. Like, that's a very high-ranking job. He gets a great apartment.
Yes, yeah.
But even the other apartments we saw,
they're not miserable.
Like Kennedy,
yeah,
who's like a
former convict Kennedy,
like. His place looked pretty cozy too.
Yeah,
like, what are we talking about here?
Yeah, it is honestly a little. I don't want to say farcical, but it is kind of funny that they have. And I will note that like there isn't quite as much grime either. Like, it is a
So
rather
clean.
clean city, it feels like. For an underground bunker,
Yeah.
where's the dirt?
Where's the dirt?
I don't see any dirt.
Where are the rats?
Where are the
Where's the bugs?
Right. Where are the bugs?
You're
Yeah.
underground?
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
got to be like creepy crawlies everywhere.
Kind of figure, but
Yeah. It's a little, for a dystopian show,
yeah.
it's a little clean.
Yeah. Little Jetsons, you know, little,
Yeah.
a little polished. Yeah.
And obviously that's just the visual aesthetic. I'm
Sure.
curious if the book tackles this
Yeah.
in a different way, or
Yeah.
if the book makes it clear there's like very cramped corridors, you have to walk single file, whatever.
Right. Competition for like showers or some, you know, whatever the thing might be.
Whatever the thing might
Yeah.
be. I think the show makes the silo honestly look kind of cozy. And I don't know. I'd vacation there.
I wouldn't not live there. If it was an option. Yeah.
Oh man, what a good show. Any final thoughts about Silo season 1?
Yeah, I think there are certainly a number of mysteries that we still have yet to explore, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how they show up in season 2. So obviously the question of the broader silo, or silos as we've come to now know, will we find that the other silos are in fact inhabited? Like, you know, I'm totally wondering if it's the case that this is the last remaining, you know, livable silo, perhaps, you know.
Yeah.
The open question around the syndrome, like, is that going to become a bigger part of the story in the second season?
Right.
I think there are a number of questions that we're still on the verge of answering as the season 1 kind of wrapped up, and that's kind of where I'm sitting here. Like, I'm really satisfied with how season 1 came together, and the criticisms that we have, I think they're not the worst. You know, they're really quite mild, and ultimately leaves me pretty excited for what's coming up.
I agree. I'm in the exact same boat.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to unraveling more of these mysteries in season 2. And I'm looking forward to reading the book.
Yes. Oh my God. I've been waiting with bated breath.
Yeah.
I'm like, I just want to read this now.
The show has made me more excited to get into the book.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of fun to know that what I watched is an adaptation.
Yes.
And because of the very nature of television,
Yeah.
it's not going to be as dense as a 400, 500 page
Sure.
book.
Yeah.
So now I'm kind of excited to like get into the more dense side of things.
Yes.
And learn more about this silo and get the info that a TV show doesn't have time to cover.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I'm excited.
We didn't even talk about the Flamekeepers, but
Oh
there's
my
like a
goodness! There's a
whole
whole-
subplot there that
Oh
I
my
think, you know, like
goodness.
I really hope that they has covered a lot more in the book, I'm sure.
Yeah. And again, Silo season 1 covers roughly-ish the
Half.
first half
Right.
of Wool
Right.
of the book.
Right.
And then season 2 presumably picks up from there. So what's fun is the way we've built our schedule on the show this season is we are going to read the book and be done with it by the time season 2 comes out on November 15th. And we will be covering season 2. It'll be fun to then do the inverse of what we're doing now.
Right.
We're doing show first, book later for
Yeah.
the first half for season 1.
Yes.
And then for the second half of the book, we will have read the book.
Right.
And then go into season 2.
Right.
Knowing what will happen
Yeah.
and watching it get adapted.
Yeah.
So we kind of get the best of both worlds in
Yeah.
this experience.
Yeah. This is obviously novel experience for both of us, going series or adaptation to book. And I am, I'm really quite, for having not started the book yet, I'm really quite enjoying this process. I mean, I think it's really kind of fun to go this way.
I agree. I feel pre-invested in the universe.
Right.
You know, I'm primed
Yeah.
to understand it and jump right in.
Right.
And
versus
start
coming
digging
into
apart
it
the
with
details.
like, you know, almost wanting to attack from the outset the adaptation. You know, like I'm basically, as I'm reading, if I've read the book before, I'm always coming into the adaptation
ready to be like, why did they change that?
You know, my hand is on the trigger, you know, like I'm ready to go, you know, like ready to shoot them down.
Not on the remote.
No.
Not on the remote to turn the TV off. Your hand is on the trigger of your Glock.
Take out this TV. You know, I am not watching any more of this. You know, so it's funny. You
that's
know,
such a great point.
I have the exact opposite energy coming into the book right now.
Yeah, I'm not going to go into the book and be like, oh my God, that's not. How dare?
Yeah.
Yeah.
why is there so much detail in
God
it?
damn
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Totally. Why
Right.
isn't this broken up into 10 easily
Right.
digestible episodes?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is fun.
It is fun. I agree.
This may
Become a new default? I don't.
this may change my mind.
Yeah.
My policy has always
I
been
agree. Yeah.
source material first, adaptation second.
Yeah.
This is new.
There's something to be said for this. I will say.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, more to come. More
Yeah.
thoughts to come as we get into the book.
Yeah.
That's it for today, folks. Thank you so much for joining us on this conversation about Silo Season
Yes,
1.
yes.
We had a blast with the TV show.
Yeah.
We hope you did too.
I agree.
And we hope you'll be joining us this season, not only to read Wool together by Hugh Howey, but then later in the season, we're getting into A Psalm for the Wild Built
Yeah, Becky Chambers.
by Becky Chambers. Then we're rounding out the season with one of the bleakest books I've ever read.
This is a challenging one.
This is going to be a challenging
Yeah.
one. Parable of the Sower by the
Octavia
incomparable Octavia Butler.
That's right.
We have a stacked season, and we hope you'll be joining us for all of it. I can't wait.
Yeah.